Dave versus Sharon from Flag of Democracy.
And I'm Jim from F.O.D. as well.
Sweet. Could you guys tell us the origin, starting with the year of Flags of Democracy?
Probably, I'd say, early 1982, probably.
Sure.
Yeah, 1982, early. Like,
I joined in 83.
he joined in 83.
Mom joined in 86.
Basically, I was in a record store in a shopping mall looking at the same UK Subs record that our first drummer Mike was looking at. And it was kind of like, hey, you like this? Yeah, I like this, blah, blah, blah. And I'd been messing around with like high school sort of like band that never amounted to anything, just like, you know, a guy playing guitar in his like dad's upstairs room and me just screaming like blah, 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 sort of stuff. Like freshman year of high school, something like 79, 80, and kind of just like Ramones, Devo, like blah, 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 sort of stuff, you know, like, and I guess this was before there was any like hardcore that we were aware of. And so like UK Subs and like DOA, Hardcore 81, we were just kind of like, oh, you like that? You like that? Yeah, yeah. So we're like, let's start a band. And then it was like trying to find a bunch of bass players, like who plays bass. And there was a lot of people who were like punk rock who kind of wanted to play a bass. But it wasn't until like going to shows in Philadelphia that you started to meet like people who actually played instruments and could play them well enough like to show up, be in a band, that sort of thing.
Your first guy was 14, Zeke.
Yeah, Zeke. Our first bass player, Zeke, was 14.
These guys were 17.
I was 17. Our drummer Mike was 15. So it was all like, you know, high school, like definitely high school first band kind of experience. The first shows that I went to, like where I actually became aware of anything like outside of my bedroom, like I would go to the record store, I would get like a Buzzcocks single, I would get a Dickies single, I would like get a Ramones record, and that music existed in my bedroom. The first time like getting out of the bedroom was going to see the Ramones at the Irvine Auditorium, going to see Iggy Pop play in Norristown. These were like the first concerts I saw. It was like, oh, whoa, there's more people. Then they did the first Punk Fest down at the
Elk Center
in 81.
Sadistic Exploits put that on.
And that was all local bands, all Philly local bands.
Sources, Sadistic Exploits, Autistic Behavior,
Decontrol,
Proteins maybe?
No Proteins. But it was all local bands, 800 kids. They sold it out. Like, this is a local show, locals only show, and it was just, you'd see flyers all around the city, like Punk Fest. And it was like, Punk Fest, I'm a punk, I'm going to the Punk Fest. And I would say that was like Philly hardcore, that was like almost ground zero. Because you're meeting people, you're like pushed up against the stage. It was like the thing you would see at a national concert, like of a national act, but all for local bands. You know, like Decontrol, smashing guitars, you know, just like, whoa, what the hell is this? You know, and taking the neck of the guitar and going down to the bar, and we started beating up the jukebox that was playing Celebration. It was like kind of, celebrate, boom, boom, boom. We're beating up the jukebox, you know, like
teenage punk rock.
John Smith from Autistic Behaviors yelling at us like, guys, don't do this, don't do this. Like he's being a responsible adult. We're being like the teenagers going, hey, we've got the neck of a guitar, let's beat up the jukebox playing Celebration. You know, but that was really kind of where we started to meet like, hey, there's other kids here, not just like the national stuff. You know, there's like other kids here who are into this local music, local bands sort of thing. And the bands that we saw and that we looked up to were like these local bands. Oh, yeah. Like Decontrol, like looking at Decontrol, I was like, oh my God, look at these guys. Because they came out, you know, Richard Birch had like, the guitar player had like Band-Aid on his head, a giant Band-Aid like you would get for a major sports injury. And he'd just be like playing leads and bashing himself over the head with his guitar, you know.
Yeah, it would sound great.
It sounded awesome. And like, to like, you know, like a 16-year-old like kid, like, well, you're just like, holy shit, this is it. You know, and this isn't like some guy from like, you know, like California, New York. This is a guy from Philadelphia. And this was a guy like, you know, when we started going to university, he was an upperclassman, you know. It's like,
this is the guy from Media, really.
The guy from Media, yeah.
Pennsylvania.
I can relate to everything you said.
That's good to know. Like, well, my band, first band, I played drums in Crypt Death, and it was like, that was the first kind of thrash band. But there was one more that Neil from Wyandotte was in, Legion of Decency. They played like 1 or 2 shows, and but they didn't, you know, play a lot. And I didn't even see, you know, we didn't really make a big impact. It was just like there were big shows that we got on. But yeah, the first hardcore band. I mean, we were the first one to try and play that speed.
Yeah, F.O.D. was kind of like the first like thrash band, but it's like really different from what thrash music is today. Like, you know, it's just like more wild and free, not like. I think what people perceive thrash to be is that chugga 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 really syncopated kind of stuff, like like do 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 do, and we were just like, blah, you know? It was just like fast as hell, but just like over the top crazy kind of thing, you know, like you're playing as fast as humanly possible. Because I think it comes from like bands like the Ramones and the Dickies. They were considered like insanely fast at that time, and it's like, oh wait, like we want to be the next step up from that. We want to play crazier and faster than these guys, you know, and like that was the thing, faster, faster, crazier, crazier, faster, faster.
Yes, yes. You get like the, we're all in the LA shit, listening to those bands, and then like DC bands came out and they were faster. And like, I love all those bands, Modern Threat, SOA.
Yeah, the Boston, not
the
LA.
Boston ones come up and they're like even faster. I'm like, all right, well that's our starting point there, right? Gangrene.
Yeah, if you're bands like Gangrene.
I remember I used to be friends with Jim before I was in the band. I was in, you know, playing drums in Crip Death, and he was in F.O.D. And he called me up one time and he's like, I just fired my bass player and my drummer because they don't like Gangrene. I was like, that's cool. That's a nice band decision. And then, like, the next week, they were back together. But eventually, I went on to join up because I just wanted to play bass. I was sick of playing drums. And there was a lot of drama in Blunder Boys, Crip Death anyway. But, you know, I just wanted, like, a mellow band of fun people. They, you know, I remember I joined the band, and we went out to the park. And he goes, oh, we got to initiate you. And put us on a nice little suburban merry-go-round, push you around real fast. Remember, it was like the twirly puke or something.
Yeah, twirly puke.
Yeah, every time somebody joins a band, you gotta get it.
You gotta get on a roll, like on a merry-go-round, and spin around until they vomit, and then you know that's basically it. After the Love Club, first it was the Love Club, and it was kind of like, you know, a lot of the more artsy kind of punk influence, like post-punk bands would kind of play there. And then you'd have stuff like the first show I went to at the Love Club was I saw the Misfits there. Was the Misfits, and the Necros.
That was the first. Oh, for I love. Yeah, I guess you're right.
And it was funny because it was a 21 and over club at that point, and we were just like, yeah, we're gonna try and get in. And it was like trying to go up to the door. No, got turned away. And this was kind of unusual. Like at that point in time, if you were 17, you could probably get into a club. It wasn't as hard as it is nowadays for kids, underage kids, to get into clubs. So we tried. We were getting ridiculous. We kept going up to the door, trying to get in. Finally had like a friend of mine on my shoulders wearing the trench coat, like, hello there, I'm here to see my son, you know, like the Three Stooges or the Little Rascals sort of thing. We were trying. And we were just sitting there outside the club, just kind of like, oh man, what the hell? And like Glenn Danzig comes up and he's like, oh, what's wrong, kids? And so we're like, well, we can't get into the club. And Danzig looks at us and goes, I want to show you something. Takes us over to the side door, pulls a knife out of his pocket. Goes to the door. Jimmy's opened the door with the knife. Goes, here, kids, I want to show you something. Swings the door open, says, enjoy the show, guys. So, you know, and
they round ball cat.
Yeah. So like Danzig's cool, man. I was like, Danzig like just got underage kids. It was showing them like seeing the Necros play there was awesome. But the club went belly up, the actual club, and then
it was kind of on and off, really. It was like the Love Hall.
Love Hall.
The first thing. We didn't play the first show. What the hell was that? It was. It was. It was like all in bands. Flipper showed up and Fang showed up, and then the bands would flip with
It was like
us. And what the
was it Murphy's Law, maybe?
Maybe. I don't know. It was like 20 bands.
Yeah, it was like one of these big.
Bad Posture. I remember that.
It stopped being like a club and became an all-age hall. Like it basically the bar and all those people kind of bailed on it, and it was like Bunga Bushai took over.
Yeah.
That was the basic thing. It was like Howard and Bruce and Steve I started doing the booking there, and then it was just amazing shows where you tell people about, like, oh yeah, remember that show where Husker Du and the Minutemen played or something.
Oh well, Love Club burned down. I was gonna say, like, it went on and on and on, and like what happened was, what I heard, it used to be like a whorehouse up top on the top floor, and some guy like went over there, like an old guy, he went to see one of the ladies, and he got ripped off somehow. He got pissed off. He went down to the gas station, bought like $5 worth of gas, and just doused the place and torched it. So no more Love Club. Omni's burned down too. I remember that. It was so funny because when we did that, we saw the craziest show. It was like in Kensington. It was just like scary. They don't like punk rockers there at all, especially 1980.
SOA?
SOA and Black Flag. Anyway, forgot what the story was.
What happened at that show? I'd like to hear. People been
We got
bringing-
there and it was just like, oh, the guy came out with a T-shirt and said, "I torched Omnis." First of all, it was like some local like goofball. Who fucking Omnis? Something torched him. And then like, whatchamacallit, SOA played. I didn't really see too much stuff. It was just the locals like came by and like got somehow in the pit, pushed around, and like a bunch more came back and just started hitting people with bats and just like fighting with all. It was most of the kids from DC who came up with SOA, like DC Skins, even Ian and all of this. But yeah, it was just nasty. They got out of there as soon as Black Flag was played their last note because it got even worse after that.
Then they had the good judgment to do another show to book the Dead Kennedys there.
Yep. And they bunch of punk rockers standing out there, and somebody threw a fucking bomb that was made out of like a milk carton full of BBs, and a cherry bomb blew up like a girl's leg, and you know.
It was
really,
basically you're in an Irish Catholic neighborhood, and you've got the Dead Kennedys playing. So go figure, you know. And I just remember like being like in the club and like locals banging on the door wanting to come in and like beat up like the punk rockers, you know, and we were just like, you know, stupid kids. So we were like the bathroom was overflowing and water's all over the floor. We're dancing around in the water and there's locals are trying to bash down the doors to get in, and it was just like, it's a punk rock show. I got this dent in my shin.
I got a dent in my head. Jim's amp or Jim's guitar.
They had a dent in my shin from like doing a flip off the stage when Negative Approach were playing on like a Wednesday night, and there's like this dent in my shin that's always there. I got that on a hardcore. I got like my back's kind of messed off from jumping off a drum riser in San Francisco when we played with MDC and the Rich Kids on LSD. I got a place on my head where hair doesn't grow from beating myself over the head with my guitar. But let me think.
I got a rock.
You know, it's like, you know, I get a lot of entertainment out of it because my kids will say things to me and I'll be like, what? Huh? What? You know? It takes me a few times to get it, like the jumble out of it from the hearing loss, but
It's a little, you know, most what people say is not worth hearing anyway. You're better off than missing out.
you figure, you know, it's not like a rock star thing. You know, I guess people look into like a being like, most people look at their band, I want to be a rock star, and what do rock stars do? Date Justin Bieber, date Taylor Swift, or whatever they do. But you know, you figure I got to like travel around in a van, see the world, and go to a city, and instead of seeing a tourist spot, I got to like hang out with people. I got to go like hang out in a bar in Prague, then go to a house party in Prague. I got to
go everywhere, like the best places.
You know, you get to see, you get to meet
people.
Every crazy person
Friendly
across the
people
country.
everywhere. You spread love, that's what we do. We spread happiness and joy. You'll see tonight. We'll bring magic. Not that it's not a magic night already. I don't know. It's like, this is what we're talking about. Like, there's these gigs, and it kind of seemed out to this area, to West Philly a little bit. It got more like basement shows and those kind of things. And then like, it's just like a lot of people moved there, and now it's like totally like a punk rock neighborhood. Like, it's really, you know, saying Starship, we built the city.
Well,
and it's like such a, this is like 30 years ago, I think. No, I guess it was like 25 years ago was the first show over here at Hilltime, next tour over here. Like a lot of bands, we played with Agent Orange, with Poison Idea played there, and you know, there's Star 13 over there. So, you know, the Philly hardcore scene has actually really created something. It has a real dynamics.
yeah, I think it's funny that the perception a lot of people have about these old shows, like saying actually when I was coming in tonight, I drove by where Husker Du played, and Jeff Jenkins was a DJ at WKDU. They played in his basement a couple times. And you're driving by, you know, like, oh, there's the basement show, and people hear like Husker Du played, and people think, oh, Husker Du played. They picture it like these huge concerts, like today, like a Green Day concert, whatever. You have these huge turnouts for these so-called punk rock shows, where it would maybe be like 25 kids, you know, 50 kids. Like there are these shows that people hear about, they think about, and it's not like as big as it is today. It's not like, you know, like fractured so much that you could have like, oh, I'm like an Earth Crisis fan, and I'm just going to go see like Earth Crisis and bands that sound like Earth Crisis. Well, okay, I just like like only bands with 3 mohawks. I'm only going to see bands with 3 hawks. It wasn't that segmented, where it was like we had like 25, 50 kids, and they were always going to be there no matter what was playing, no matter who was playing.
Yeah, and then it got more and more. It was like there would be like some punk rock bands, some hardcore bands, and there would be like a real like quirky kind of new wave band or like reggae band. It'd always be fine. Like it wouldn't be like a thing.
I guess maybe that's part of like as it got bigger, there was more room for it to almost get smaller. As more and more people got into it, it could become like more segmented.
Narrowcasting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing was like they didn't really put out enough records. None of the bands. We just spent our money on like beer and stuff. It wasn't like a hard working like ice cream employee who just saved money and was real diligent and smart. We were just we just had a good time, and thank God a lot of it got caught on video, and thank God like one person like might have caught like someone's demo tape right before it like fell apart and like put it on the internet. Now you can have a history of like, it's great music. I heard a thing, it was like all those Philly punk, like post-punk bands. It was like 12 of them. They all sound like they like Public Image. All the bands used to play at the damn East Side Club, and it was fantastic. I never heard it before. It was so underexposed.
Well, it's funny like even when we got together the money to make a record, like when we made our first LP, it was guys from New Jersey who put it out.
It kind of just started in Philly and probably Harrisburg and Pittsburgh. A couple shows here and there, but like, and there would be a show every couple every week or every couple weeks, and then it would be like now. I think there's a show somewhere every single day. Like you can go to a show somewhere. There's something happening, some weird little town, or like the library in like this rural area, or
when I was a kid, I grew up in Lansdale, like up until maybe the age of about 12. And now there's like a scene in Lansdale.
There is.
Not just like a little, like a couple kids. There's a scene in Lansdale. It's like you look at that, like, oh, this town is like something big now, Or like there's a scene in Phoenixville. Like there's a scene Lehigh Valley, like we're kind of like, our drummer Bob lives up in Lehigh Valley, so we're kind of like Philly, Lehigh Valley. We kind of got that corridor on lockdown.
We could play like 10 shows in Pennsylvania if we wanted to, like and they'd all be completely different. We wouldn't really be that far apart.
And
so
it was
nice.
It was fun, like going out to we used to go out to the Hardcore for Central PA. We used to go out there. We used to play out in Mechanicsburg, and it was just like a whole different crop of people. And we thought like, oh my gosh, we're going like out into like Children of the Corn. We're going out to the sticks. In retrospect, it wasn't that far away, but it was like there's this other scene out there, and it's a whole different crop of bands, a whole different people. And you move a little further, and you're going to end up with like the Pittsburgh scene. You're going to end up with the Erie scene, like Scranton.
Erie scene.
Ooh, it's an Erie scene. I always said like the best thing about being a Philly band is you got to feel the crack in the Liberty Bell.
It was the Philly scene though was known. So you think it's this real aggro kind of hate music, and everyone's real violent, and you get killed in the pit. I remember this Philly. Everyone's like thrashing out with a smile. Someone falls down, get right up, no problem. We were heroes back then, man. You do dives, do a flip off the damn PA speaker, and really fly for just a couple seconds. It was a whole new thing. Now everybody, stage dives or whatever.
Yeah, it's homogenized moshing.
We were kind of like
it's not the crazy skanking like slam dancing. It's gone from slamming in the pit to moshing in a circle. Which hey, that's your thing, cool. But it was really like chaotic. It was really. Like I was at a show at the East Side Club. I think it was like Discharge or someone was playing, and I was standing off to the side. People like skanking, doing that, slow, creepy kind of skank, and then breaking into like a full-on slam, then the elbows, legs flying. And there was this older woman watching. She goes, "Oh my gosh, they're like animals stalking their prey. They're like animals. Look at them. They're like." And I'm thinking, these are my friends, the animals she's talking about. Like, I know them all. Like, they're all cool. Like, but from the viewpoint of an outsider, it was really frightening. It was really scary. You could be in the pit. You could, like, be beaten up and bruised, but you were still cool. You know, we're cool. There wasn't a lot of fist swinging.
Gotta have a bunch of beer spilled on you just because things got a little rowdy.
It got crazy, but it wasn't like we weren't violent to each other. It was more like
it's always
you're pissed off at everything, and you're just expressing that. You know, but you're expressing it with your friends, and they're not
social network.
That was social networking. You might get an elbow in your face. Yeah, like I'd go when I was in high school. I'd go to school the next day and it'd be like, oh, you got a black eye. Where'd you get a black eye? I got kicked in the face by a jackboot. Well, what did you do to the guy that kicked you in the face with the jackboot? Oh, it was my friend who kicked me in the face with the jackboot. You know, so it was pissed off. It was violent, but it was really fun.
Yeah, well, it was always some funny shit going on. Like the human ball. I think the first time I saw it was in Philly. Just everybody gets together and crowds blast into the walls and stuff. And whatchamacallit? Chicken fights, lots of chicken fights in the pit. You know, take yourself serious. You're not, it's not that friggin' important.
Remember the first time that we ever saw the circle dance? A bunch of us went up to A7 in New York, and they had the full like circle dance. It was actually I think it was Agnostic Front's first show, and we went up. I think some Boston bands were supposed to play. We went up to see these Boston bands, and AF ended up playing their first show there. And we saw the kids like doing like the hardcore like circle dance. We're like, what the hell is this? You know, and like the other Philly kids were like, you try yours. So I went out. I'm like going, hey, I'm doing my lap. You know, it was like, whoa, it was so funny. It was so new to us. And then like when it started to come down to Philly, like we were kind of like, okay, here's the circle pit. We're going the other way.